Welcome everybody to the online breastfeeding class for today. A topic that I thought I'd talk about, again, has been inspired by a question that was asked by my sister. It's something that she's been dealing with for the last probably about a week, going on a week anyway. And it's actually quite common question, and one of those things where you kind of have to, when something happens once, it doesn't necessarily mean there's an issue, but when something starts to happen consistently, then it becomes something that maybe we start to say, okay, do we need to change something? So what we're going to talk about today is green poop. Pretty much that simple, green stool. And this is for a breastfed baby, not a formula-fed baby. So a breastfed baby normally should have a yellow, mustardy, seedy type of stool, and that can begin to change. Sometimes it can just turn green due to something mom ate, and it shows up in the stool. It could be a lot of maybe green vegetables or something in mom's diet. Or if a baby is eating solids, it might be something, that they're eating in their diet. Sometimes it can be a sign of a food sensitivity or a sign that the baby has something as simple as a cold. But in most cases, something like a food sensitivity or the more common, which would be an imbalance of the foremilk and the hindmilk, those two instances would be if you would see the signs of those stools not just once or twice, but they're becoming consistent. Like you're noticing that the poop has now turned from yellow to green and it's staying green. So the number one thought as a lactation specialist, counselor, consultant, whatever you would call yourself, the first thought that we would have would be that the baby is getting an imbalance. They're getting more of that super thin milk, the less fattier milk, and not enough of the fattier milk, the milk that's in the back of the breast. Typically, this is caused because a baby is switched from side to side. So that used to be a very old thing that we were told, and I guess not really that old because maybe less than 10 years ago, probably even less than that. I know I was told to switch sides, but I want to say within the last 6 years that has changed. We no longer tell moms to switch sides at a feed. Now, typically when a baby is first born, when you have a newborn baby, we do want moms to try to feed baby on both breasts just because we're trying to establish a good milk supply. But the main point of breastfeeding is we want that baby to breastfeed on the breast, whichever breast you put them on. We want them to breastfeed on that one breast for as long as they choose until they stop and they are finished. Sometimes they could be completely finished with their meal on just one side. They can be on that one side for up to 20 to 30 minutes. We want them to be on that breast. It can be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, to where they stop, they let go, they're usually asleep. You could then burp them and, just kind of like just sitting them up and burping them. A lot of times will tell you if they are finished eating because they will usually either stay asleep, maybe they'll give a good burp and still just kind of like be out, or they'll wake up, that burp will wake them up and they'll start getting antsy, start crying, and be ready to eat again. If they've only been on that first breast for maybe 10 minutes, I would go back and offer that breast again, just to be sure that that baby gets as much of that hind milk, that fattier milk in the back. Then, if the baby seems to have no longer is not happy with that breast, you feel that it's empty, they've emptied that breast, you can move them to the next side. Think of it like this. If you put the baby to the breast for 10 or 15 minutes, and then you take them off and you put them to the other breast for 10 or 15 minutes, which milk are they getting? They're only going to get the foremilk. They're only going to get that milk in the front. And if a baby is not being allowed to breastfeed as long as possible on one breast before they go to the second, then they're only usually getting that foremilk. That's where the green stools, they can begin to look slimy. They can be a little bit explosive. You can find them a little more gassy, a little more colicky. They can be gaining weight just fine. They could be sleeping, normal. You feel they're content. They could be content, and they can be gaining weight. But maybe they're feeding, in one case, it could just be the green stool. That's the only sign that you have. Or other babies, it could be where they're not sleeping very long and they're not content as much. And as my sister just said to me, she's just so shocked now that she has changed and started block feeding, which is what we call it, that the baby's total mood has changed. Just so content and sleeping really well and just very happy and content. And this is just for the fact that they are full. They got a very good amount of that fattier milk at the back of the breast. So when we are just we're switching those sides, they're not getting enough of that fattier milk. So let them feed as much as they can on one breast, and then you can switch to the second side. Now, some moms feel that a baby cannot get a full feeding on just one breast, but a baby actually can get a whole feeding on one breast and not have to switch sides at all. It just depends on a lot of different things. The mom's capacity, like milk capacity, she could have a smaller milk capacity, and does not have anything to do with size. It could just be that mom does not have as many little, we call them receptors. They're little tanks, basically. It's the clusters that you see if you see a picture of a breast. Think of it like grapes and all those little grapes. They don't have enough of those to hold enough milk for a full feeding on one breast. And a lot of times that can happen for a number of different reasons, but typically if you try to breastfeed as often as you can those first 7 days of breastfeeding, even when you feel like there's no milk there yet, it's laying those receptors. Like literally every time they suck, every time they breastfeed, whether they're getting the milk or not, they're laying receptors. The body is preparing that breast for milk and being able to hold the milk. Another sign can be an oversupply, but with oversupply, and you wouldn't think it's a problem, but it can be. With oversupply, you'll see a lot more symptoms. The baby won't be as content, and you'll see a little more, just a lot more symptoms. And if you look that up, you'll see what I mean. And like the other topics, I will put a link below that talks a little bit more about, the stools and the hind milk and the foremilk and the importance of the two. I mean, we want them to have both. So if you're noticing this green stool and you're noticing that it's consistent, it's not going away, then it could be an imbalance of that hind milk and foremilk. If you are pretty confident that your baby does not have that imbalance, that they are getting enough of that hind milk or that fattier milk in the back of the breast. So let's say you say, my baby is getting, they breastfeed just completely on one breast, and then the next feeding is on the other breast. Or you just are pretty confident that it is not a fore-milk, hind-milk imbalance. It could be a sensitivity to something in the mother's diet. It could be dairy. It could be anything. So you might start to think about what you're eating a lot of and see if possibly eliminating that helps. But it may not be that at all. And there are some cases where a baby does just have green stool, but it is rare. It's just not common for a breastfed baby to have green stools. They're typically a mustard yellowy color. So when it changes to a green, if it's a constant, it's not going away, then you probably need to do something a little bit different. Now, in my sister's case, what was happening, I think it was kind of like a two-way problem. Okay, so she was switching sides, but she was allowing the baby to breastfeed as long as he wanted on one side. She didn't offer the other breast until he seemed done with the first breast, but he did breastfeed on both sides. But the problem was he was falling asleep, and he was sleeping a lot, just not staying awake on the breast. So what she thinks what was happening was, it seemed like he was on that breast for a very long time, but he was actually not eating consistently the whole time. And so when she thought he was done, she'd move him to the other side. He had not actually emptied that breast and got to the fattier milk. So over the course of the last 2 days, what we told her to do is to actually offer that same breast twice. So put him on that breast, feed him, and until he's finished. And because he's sleepy, we're doing this because he's sleepy, and he's not emptying the breast. So we say, okay, if he falls asleep, that's fine. After 10 minutes, whatever, he falls asleep. And then when he's ready to eat again, put him back on that breast. Now, if he's awake and he empties the breast, then you could go directly to the next breast. But in her case, because he was so sleepy, we did the block feeding, just where we said, okay, just continue to offer that breast until you feel that breast has been emptied. And we say it feels empty. We know breasts are never empty. They're always making milk. But just the fact that we want it to, in your mind, feel empty, because it does. You'll have that full feeling like, there's milk there and it's time to feed. And then it will go back to just feeling soft and normal. And that's what we mean by an empty breast. We feel he's emptied that breast. So if you're seeing green stools, a good thing to do is to start asking questions. Just asking your breastfeeding support person, someone who's breastfed before, and what I really want to say is try to talk to somebody who has up-to-date information. And the internet is full with a lot of information, and it can be overwhelming and scary. Try to find maybe just two or three good resource websites that you feel are accurate. Right. The one I am looking at right now is Kelly Mom. That's a pretty popular and good website. She's pretty up to date. So Kelly Mom, and I will post that link below. The La Leche League is also a great website. Government websites are always also good and reliable, but one of my favorites is breastfeeding.ca, I think is what it is. It's Dr. Newman, and he writes books and gives a lot of conferences, gives a lot of speeches, and he has a great website. He works out of Canada, but he also works a lot in the States. But you can usually email him and ask him questions, and he's great about responding. And he also has a clinic where you can take your child if you were having issues. So he also works out of a clinic as well. So he's really up to date on a lot of information. So there are some great websites out there. So just try to find 2 to 3 resources that you just always go to. If you have a question, go to those websites. And then you have your resource people that maybe it's during the day you can call or text or email or whatever it is that can help you and give you accurate and up-to-date information. So try to find those ones, those people that can really help you and answer those questions. So I hope that helps answer that question. It's actually a very simple fix. It's not a horrible problem. It's not something to be overly worried and stressed about. Yes, it's something you want to kind of like change, but it's not something you need to be overly stressed. It happens a lot. And the thing is, as the babies get older, a lot of those little problems go away just because they get better at it and they're older and their feeding just is better overall. So that's kind of it for this class. Be sure to hit the like button if this topic helped you, if you think that it was informative and really answered any of your questions. And be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with any new videos that I'm putting out. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that you are having a great week, and I will talk to you guys again soon in my next video. Bye guys.